Hello, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the Waynesboro Area School District Board of Directors for April 26, 2022. Let's rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Ms. Kuzer, how about a roll call today?
Mrs. Sullivan? Here. Mr. Marvin?
Here.
Mrs. Zimmerman?
Here.
Mrs. Fortney?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Dr. Royer?
Here.
Mrs. Strite? Here. Miles?
She won't be joining us today.
And Mrs. Harold?
Here. Okay, Dr. Klein, no changes to the agenda. So do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, same with the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve with a correction.
Okay,
I'll speak to if there's a second.
okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Marvin.
The approval of the agenda says the motion is by Kim Miles and seconded by Ms. Miles. I'm not sure who moved it last time, but I'm pretty sure we can have the mover and the second be the person, same person.
I
What-
will make that correction. I'll go back to the
Yep.
video and make that correction.
So
Thank you for picking that up. Anything else? Okay, so with that correction, all those in favor, please say aye.
aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I abstain.
Okay,
Was not
thank
here.
you, Ms. Zimmerman. Superintendent report, Dr. Klein.
All right, well, I just wanted to let the board know that the testing has begun this week. It's not always our favorite thing, but it did start. PSSA started this week. And also wanted to welcome our new assistant principal at the high school, Marty Bigler. Marty, welcome to Waynesboro.
Okay, for public comment today, we have one person who would like to speak, Mrs. Brocious. Come on down.
Hello, my name is America Brocious. I live at 13224 Delaware Circle in Waynesboro. I noticed on the agenda that you guys were going to be discussing the Bus Boss contract. Is that the software that we're currently using for the transportation circumstances? Okay, so my just a comment as somebody, happen to be the crossing guard at Hooverville. And so I'm standing out there all the time. I'm watching the traffic patterns. I see all the buses and the kids. And one of the things is that there's a number of buses that are crossing each other at different points through their routes. And a number of buses, multiple buses are going into one neighborhood to pick up students during that time. So say for the elementary run, I'll see 2 or 3 buses cross route on 16 after picking up some kids, cross, and then go pick up some more kids. And the Bus Boss software seems to be missing that part because it's costing the district more money, not only in the gas and the mileage, but it's also causing there to be more drivers. I know that there's a bus driver shortage at the moment, and there's certain field trips that have been canceled because of that bus driver shortage. So my concern is for you all to think about that when you're moving forward. Maybe there's other softwares or other programs that are available. And I'd like to know who I need to speak to in regards to the transportation issues. For example, at Hooverville, almost 1/3 of our children are being picked up via car and not riding the bus. So it makes the cars line up along Route 16 up the hill, which makes it very difficult for cars and vehicles that are exiting. It also blocks the entire entrance to Hooverville School. So when the buses are trying to enter in the school, they're having to enter through the exit. When cars are exiting at the same time, there have been numerous times when I've had to stop cars and try and make sure that the buses get the right of way because they are larger, but not all the cars. I can't be there every single day, and the cars don't always pay attention if they're new people. So there's a number of things that that Mrs. Eberhard, as well as the transportation team at Hooverville have worked together to try and make some changes. Unfortunately, there's some things that are out of our ability to change, and we need the district's help to do those things. So somebody could email me or get back to me about some of the concerns, I would greatly appreciate it, because I know, for Summit View and Fairview, they're experiencing much of the same congestion in those areas for pickup with the buses, the crossing guards, the students. It's very, very dangerous. We have a student that walks across Route 16 right now. And the other day, he almost got hit by another vehicle. It's just very dangerous. And I don't know how to address these kinds of concerns with the district.
Okay, thank you. What committee would you suggest, the three of you, that this be a more in-depth discussion? We've had many discussions on this, but if we're looking at it again, and I'm not sure we can come up with a solution.
Probably.
And facilities again, okay. So we'll look at that. Yeah. So we'll look at, we've had many discussions. We have not come up with an answer for that. So we'll keep plugging away. Okay, thank you. So moving now, we have two presentations tonight. First one from Mrs. Rankinen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jenna Rankinen. For the past 2 years, I've been the college and career advisor at the Waynesboro Area Senior High School. It's honestly been one of the greatest privileges of my life. I've learned so much from the students and just had this opportunity. And I'm very sad to be leaving, but I'm excited to also be here today to talk to you a little bit about the program. I do understand that there's a few more new board members who might not have known what the position is. So I wanted to start off with the purpose of the PA College Advising Corps, what my job is strictly at WASHS, my evaluation process, and a summary of yearly events that I've done, the daily tasks that I do, and then some data from the past 2 school years. So my clicker likes to work. Thank you. The purpose of the PA College Advising Corps is to increase the number of low-income first-generation college and underrepresented students who enter and complete higher education. So I'm here to not only help just the college-going students, but I'm also here to help everyone. We have 29 advisors in 29 high schools across PA, and then we're also part of a larger network of the College Advising Corps that has 782 colleges across the United States. And then I also wanted to point out that we're recognized as a national AmeriCorps member. So my job strictly at WASHS is to increase the college-going culture. I'm also here to help learners reach their post-secondary planning. So I think this is very important because of the whole first choice initiative, because we want to make sure students are prepared to enter whatever field they want to as soon as they graduate WASHS. So I'm here to provide information for all career options. My full title is College and Career Advisor. So I will say military is not my forte, but I will get them in contact with the right military personnel that they want to talk to. And then also the financial aid process, even if families have had older students go to college, it changes every year. So I'm here to help with the nuances of that. I know there's a question about my evaluation process. So I think it's extensive, and I appreciate that because I love feedback. So I have a site supervisor. Last year it was Mr. Pappas. This year it was Sarah Goulet, the junior counselor. Next year we're switching back to Dr. McCallum. And then I also have a PCAC admin supervisor. And so that's actually the program director, Amanda Lowe. We have monthly check-ins just to see how I'm doing, any new projects that I'm working on. And then Ms. Goulet and Amanda, my boss, come together for a mid-year evaluation and then also an end-of-year evaluation. We also use key performance indicators. So we're a data-driven organization. So we focus on one-on-one meetings with students, family engagement, FAFSA assistance and completion, 1+ application for college, and then 3+ applications, and then also the SAT and ACT registration. A lot of schools are test optional right now, but it's still nice to know where we match up with other schools in PA. So just looking broadly at my job, in the beginning of the school year, we do financial aid nights. So we bring in our FIA representative. She does a broad overview of the financial aid process. And then we also bring in Shippensburg and HCC reps to talk about their specific processes. And then later on in October, once the FAFSA officially opens, we have a night where students and their families can come in and actually do the FAFSA with us. They bring all their necessary paperwork. We do it in the library and they can ask questions when needed. And it's just nice that they get it done, can get the most amount of money. And then I also implemented College and Career Week also in October. This is just a push to try to help all students, not just the college going students. So we have mock interviews, college application workshops, resume reviews, and also instant decisions with colleges. This year I brought in HCC, Shippensburg, and Wilson. It's just nice that students can leave class, come down, meet with us for 15 minutes, do the application, and they'll have a college acceptance right there. I also brought in someone from Penn State Mont Alto. She did the mock interviews and resume reviews, and it was just very beneficial for students to come and do a mock interview. Riley actually participated in that, so feel free to ask her questions. I'll put you on the spot. But yeah, so that's basically the fall, as well as some college visits here and there. In the spring, we do SAT time. So I just held that in the counseling office. This is just a way that students can come down, do their registrations. If they're eligible for fee waivers, they can come down and do that. Just get it out of the way. We also just hosted the college fair, which I'll touch on a little bit later, just because that's a new event that we incorporated this year. We are holding Junior Jumpstart in May. So summer melt rate is something that's very prevalent in the United States right now. Students, they deposit at a college in the summer and they're all excited to go. And then throughout the summer, they lose that motivation and they end up not going to school. They might transfer to a local school. And so a lot of colleges farther away have seats open. And so we're trying to combat that by getting the juniors involved early. So we're hosting a presentation to kind of get the ball rolling, get people to start thinking about that with their families. And then I also help out with the awards night in May. Last year, we handed out over $83,000. I know a lot of students really appreciated the opportunities that money will give them. And I'm excited to see what the total is right now for this next year. And then finally, senior shindig in May. So last year, seniors, they didn't have a lot of things because of COVID. And so we tried to make the celebration bigger. So I asked the senior class advisors to help me and we came up with senior shindig. We had like the yearbook signing party and just a nice picnic. We even brought in live goldfish from Officer Gordon. So that was a fun kind of prize that they could win. This is the South Central PA College Fair. So this was hosted by Penn State Mont Alto. We were able to bring 65 juniors and a few sophomores. We had 40 colleges come and it was all funded by PCAC as well as LUNFEST, which is a scholarship committee in Philadelphia. I was really happy with the turnout just for it being their first year, and I'm excited to see which colleges they incorporate for next year. So just breaking it down even further, my daily tasks, I have a lot of different topics that I cover with seniors and juniors and some sophomores even, but most of it is applying to college, giving them information on how to, all the different ways and money that they can save. We did save almost $4,000 in fee waivers, which is exciting. Then I also run the college rep visits. So this year it was very fun because I could actually welcome people in to watch this. And we had that one-on-one communication because last year it had to all be over Zoom mostly, but it was nice to kind of network and meet all these different colleges. We had 33 in total. And then I also tried to tailor it to the student interests. So this year we had a lot of Southern schools like Clemson, University of Georgia. A lot of people were interested in it. So we were able to like bring them in. That had to be over Zoom, but it was still nice to get this exposure, the exposure out for students. And then this year I also had the opportunity to take over the college application process. So I was writing all the letters of recommendations, completing the common application profiles. Then I also uploaded the transcripts for students. I want to do a shout out to Beth Bear too, because without her, I don't think I would have survived this year. So some more tasks continued. I kind of took over the counseling office webpage. I was really excited to start the scholarship website just because we have so many different students in and out of the building all the time. We just made it more accessible to everyone. And then I also do the welcome page, college timeline, financial aid pages, as well as the career prep page. I try to celebrate the seniors as much as I can. So we do accepted cards for lockers and also Instagram posts. The handle is WASDPAHS if you guys would like to check it out. And then I also create presentations and resources for learners. If I see a lot of students come down to my office and they have the same kinds of questions, I like to just make a worksheet and put it in a folder on the guidance office bulletin board, and then they can take it as they go. And then I also just help counseling staff when needed, when they have projects that they need done. I wanted to just show you guys a picture of the scholarship website. I hopefully made it easier for students to find scholarships. We just have the name, the deadline, a PDF copy of it, as well as where to turn it into, just because some students get confused and it is a daunting process to have a 15-page document. So just make it handy dandy for them. So getting into my data from last year, I met with 79% of the seniors. I met with 49 families, 1+ application, 136 students have applied to college, at least one place. So that's about 46%. There was a sharp decline because of COVID. A lot of students just wanted to enter the workforce and then take a gap year. Total applications, we had 401, and then 42% of seniors who went to college completed the FAFSA. One thing I did want to point out, so the blue bars are WASD data, and then the PCAC program average is the yellow bars. I did for my second year personally, I wanted to focus on the 3+ college applications as well as the family engagement. I'm a competitive person, so I wanted to see those margins go up a little higher. So for my data for this year, I don't have the end of year data, so I can't give you those numbers. But so far I've met with 85% of the seniors, met with 61 families, 51% of seniors have applied to at least one college. We almost reached the 500 college application mark, and we have 117 FAFSAs completed, which I'm happy with because last year our ending total was 124. So this is in April, and that number was taken in August, the end of August. And then I've also been meeting with juniors, so I've met with 70 of those. The selectivity, I think, is a really interesting pie chart because a lot of seniors are applying to very competitive and highly competitive schools. So I'm really proud of them. They're expanding their their location. They're going farther away. They're getting into higher level schools, and I'm very proud of them. I feel like they're my students. So, oh, there you go. So I just wanted to show you guys where all the seniors have applied to. There's definitely going to be more. May 1st is quickly approaching. So as seniors are making those decisions, I'm excited to have them expand this list a little bit more. And then I also wanted to show you the most popular colleges for the seniors this year. A lot of local options, which is always good. And then some are expanding out towards Lancaster. Okay. That's all. Any questions?
Questions, anybody? I have questions.
Yes.
So what do you think the number should be of our kids who should be, I mean, you can have a capable kid who doesn't want to go to college. I understand that. But, you know, we always look at, okay, this kid would do great in college, but they're not going. So what do you look at for a number? Like, what do you think we should have? Because that does seem low to me, but maybe I'm wrong. You know, what do you think?
Yeah, looking at the data from the last college advisor, they had like 60 to 65% of seniors went to college. So I try to promote it as much as I can. I wish the number was higher, but sometimes just I think students are so scared about the debt of college that they don't want to. They either want to take a gap year and work for a while, save up some money, or find a really good college that gives out a lot of financial aid. I will say too, like a lot of schools, they don't have the money that they used to give out. So I've been kind of disappointed in the financial aid offers that these seniors have been getting. They're very capable, they're smart, amazing individuals, and they're just not either getting into the school or getting the money that they deserve.
So we get a fair number who are also rejected from a more
Yes.
top tier school.
Yes.
Okay.
And
But you're encouraging them to try anyway, I assume, or I mean,
absolutely
what's
to
your role
apply.
in that? You're like, I really want to go to Brown, do you say go for it? Or do you say probably not for you?
If they have the grades in the SAT score, I say go for it because you never know. I know Harvard and all the Ivy Leagues admissions or acceptance rates were less than 5%. And
Mhm.
so it's like, it's really competitive. I don't know what more some of these students could do. We had someone with over 1,500 SAT score and he didn't get into an Ivy League school.
Mhm.
And the highest SAT is a 1,600.
Right.
And so I
This-
feel bad.
Oh, so does Lenfest still do their scholarship or not anymore? They
Yes.
do? Okay. So do the Lenfest winners end up still going to Columbia like they used to, or?
So we actually didn't have any Lenfest winners last year. I don't know what happened.
Did you have a good number of applicants or?
We had, let me think. I think we had 21
Oh, yeah.
in total.
Wow.
We had 3 that interviewed. There's like a process, and then none of them got it. This
Wow.
year, though, we have 6 interviewees. They just did the mock interviews to try to help prepare them more.
Mhm.
We did that last year. There was some change in leadership, and I know I've been involved in conversations asking what Waynesboro in particular could do to help increase that. And they didn't give me a straight answer, but they did say that they're looking for deserving students. And they said that all of our students were deserving. So
Okay. Okay. Anybody else?
Actually, I have one question. So, you have this slide of all these schools, all these different schools. And I noticed when I was at graduation, maybe last year, it was Shippensburg, HCC, Penn State.
Yep.
That's it. But have you seen in the past 2 years, students branching out to other schools as well?
absolutely. I think last year, a lot of college decision or experiences still were impacted with COVID. So they still had to stay in the dorms a lot. They still had to wear their
Yeah.
masks. They still had to, the clubs and activities weren't a thing. And so I think students were just worried to go pay all that extra money to live on campuses and then not get that same experience, but they still wanted to go to college. So I that's what I think. I wish I could ask them now, but I'm hoping these seniors, they're applying and they're depositing at farther away schools. So I'm hoping they actually go there and thrive there.
And I'm not
You're good.
saying that those 3 schools are not good.
Mhm.
There are just lots of schools out there,
Absolutely.
great schools out there. And
Yeah.
I'd like to see our students be able to diversify. So thank you. It sounds like they are.
Yes.
Excuse me, just a question. What about the request to do trade schools or skills, technical skills, trade skills? Was there like an increase or a difference in kids wanting those types of that type of training?
I know currently we have 4 seniors who are going to technical and trade schools. Last year, I think we had 1 or 2. That is decreasing, but I do know a lot of the career tech students, they get those certifications and so they're ready for the workforce. So it's a great
And I
program.
believe this year was the first time we had any pilot scholarship since it's been put in place. I guess the first time with any applicants, if I remember correctly. I don't think we got them before.
What is
Career-
that?
It's the tide is for technical school. It's
Oh,
specifically
A
for
scholarship
kids
for
from
tech.
careers
Okay.
from the career
Right.
centers.
Right.
We've never had that before, and there was one established just for career tech states.
Yes, so hopefully.
So it was the
We haven't
first time
had
I
that
knew
yet.
of it, anybody applying.
Yes. Thank you very much.
All right.
Now, before we have our next one, Riley, I would like to know you're not next, you have to wait.
Oh,
But I just want to, you've had interaction with Mrs. Rankin, or Miss, I'm sorry if you're not Mrs. So tell us about that a little bit. Like, what did you do down there and what'd you gain?
She was awesome. So I am one of the kids that wants to stay local. I don't want to have to pay for dorms. I have 7 years of college. I want to be a lawyer.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to look at the best college that's fit for me. And right now I'm thinking Shippensburg, but I also have like talked to Mount St. Mary's. So, but what Miss Rankin has done is we did the mock interviews. I signed up for that and she told me, and we had the one guy, he still asks about me. So I mean, so like she helped me with that interview and then she also opened my eyes about Gettysburg College because she said I had the grades for that. So she's opened my eyes to other colleges, not just Shippensburg. Because she helped me with my SAT. I was a part of the tea time. She helped me with that. And of course that was fun because we had snacks and we talked and
So how about finances? Do you feel like you know more about financing in college?
yeah.
Okay.
So I talked to her a little bit and she talked to me about the FAFSA, definitely filling that out, getting that done. Also, she said apply to as many scholarships as possible. There's a scholarship for left-handed people. So she said there's scholarships for literally everything. So
So here's your quiz question. What's a Stafford? What's a Pell? Oh, it's okay. You still have time to learn about those.
they're grants.
One's a loan, one's a loan,
Okay.
one's a grant. Yeah. Okay. All right. Don't want to put you on the spot there.
You're good. You're
But,
good.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Okay. Presentation number 2, Dr. McCallum.
All right, good evening, everybody. So today I was, after discussion at the academic committee, we are having a conversation about the WASH's schedule. So if you've been on the board for a while, you know that I like to kind of start with our leadership framework that we worked on when Dr. Klein came on board. So if you've been on the board for a long while, you know I've done a similar presentation on this before, back in 2013. And at that point in time, the decision was made by the board to change to the current schedule that we have, which underwent a slight modification when Mr. Pappas was the principal by adding a homeroom. That was at the suggestion of the faculty. So we've been on that schedule for about 8 or 9 years now. So probably time for us to, you know, go back and look at things. And Nick said I can use my arrow here. So it doesn't show up on there. So, you know, looking at our performance, seeing how things are going, and determine if that is the best schedule to meet the needs of our learners and also our staff. So prepping for today, I did a little bit of research on block schedules, traditional schedules, and you will find that there is no research to support any version of a high school schedule being better than another. And I think that's important to acknowledge, simply because I don't want there to be people to think, well, if we do this, then such and such is going to get better, or this is going to be worse. And a lot of things with scheduling has to do with your local context. So this is an old quote, but I still think it's appropriate. You know, nothing has a greater potential to impact a school students and their learning as the schedule. This is what facilitates or inhibits programming, promotes collaboration, and then builds community. So since becoming the high school principal, we've had conversations about whether or not the current schedule is meeting our needs. So this is a slide that I had presented in 2013. And at that time, we reviewed with the committee, and Mrs. Bayer was actually on that committee at the time, 3 different types of schedules. So in our area, there tends to be traditional schedules or block schedules. I will tell you, most of the schools in our local IU are under a block schedule. Dr. Royer had shared with us that many of the suburban Philadelphia schools were going to what was then referred to as a rotating block. So for example, if science is period 1 or block 1 on a Monday, it's going to be block 2 on Wednesday and block 3 on Thursday, and so on and so forth. Under some of those schedules, students don't see every class every day, which would allow for the periods to be a little bit longer. So we kind of gave some bullet points from the time. So the traditional and the block schedule bullet points were based on our local context. So when we ran a block schedule in the past, students took 4 classes in the fall and 4 classes in the spring, 80 minutes apiece with 4 minutes of travel time. We had lunch for 30 minutes as we do now, which is built into one of the blocks. And then we also had an advisory period, which I would say is similar to what the middle school has in terms of Braves block. So mathematically, if you took 8 credits a year for 4 years, you'd have the capability of completing 32 credits in your career. And at that time, our graduation requirements were 27.75 credits. At that time, when we were considering a traditional schedule, we were thinking that it would just be an 8-period day. So the classes would be about 40 minutes. We ended up doing a 7-period day, which meant that mathematically students could complete 28 credits during their school career. So the current graduation credits under that 7-period day at WASH's are 23 and a half. So with our students that are earning credits at the middle school, we have some students that are earning 4, 5 credits at WAMS. So there are a good number of students that mathematically don't need to be in the building their junior year at this time. And that's some of the things that Ms. Rankinen has been helping us with, as well as Mr. Hoffman, our college and career advisor. So at that point, the committee, no one was interested in a rotating block. So we were back and forth between the traditional schedule and the block schedule. And what was ultimately decided was that we would go to a traditional schedule, which is what we did for the 13-14 school year. That's not correct. 14-15. We talked about this in 13-14. So I thought it would be helpful to kind of give a little bit of a history. So I did the best I could, digging deep into the file room at WASH's. We have course selection guides that go back to 1996. So I don't know what the schedule was when the building opened, but I have to assume it was some type of a traditional schedule. And if my research is correct, in the 2002-03 school year was when WASH's went to the block schedule. So I kind of summarized some of those things already. And then, as I mentioned, in the spring of 2013, we developed a committee within the high school staff. And I led that committee. We talked about pros and cons of both, what other districts were doing. We did a lot of research within our IU, within the District 3 of PIAA, as well as across the state of Pennsylvania. And then in the fall of 2013, the board approved a 7-period schedule plus lunch, and then 23 and a half credits to graduate out of 28 possible credits in a career. So then just giving a little bit of a timeline of what we were working on until the new schedule started. In the fall and winter of 2013, the board provided a lot of financial support for us to do curriculum work with teachers. So the other thing I will say is our data at the high school went up a lot when we went to a traditional schedule. But I would say I would not feel comfortable making a correlation between a new schedule and the data, because we did a lot of professional development. And I do think that having the opportunity, like we were getting subs, I was working with teachers 1 day a week. My colleagues were working with teachers 1 day a week. We had people from the IU coming in all the time. So I think it would be hard to say that one was the factor over the other. I think both things were really important. So if we talk about a schedule change, that would be something I would want to see, making sure that we have the opportunity to give good PD. So there's a lot of back end work in Sapphire that goes with the schedule. We put all the kids' course requests in, which actually they put them in. They've already done that for next year. And when you tell Sapphire to run and it runs for about an hour, it has to know what to do. So you have to program all of those things. So we've talked about that in the academic committee. And then in May, we worked on the master schedule on a traditional day for the 14-15 school year, and that was implemented in the fall. And we've kind of been working on that. So there, like I said, there's been some tweaks to that over the course of the last however many years. Last year during COVID, the high school ran a A-B block schedule where the students had they had first period every day. And that has to do with a class that runs first period for our special education students. And then periods 2 through 7, they had half of them on A day and the other half on B day. So as I mentioned, over the summer, we started talking about this within the board academic committee. I wanted to point out the importance of the career tech visit, in my opinion, that we did in the fall. So the October parent conference day at the high school is typically not well attended. So we took advantage of that day and the entire faculty went to career tech to do a visit. They were open that day, so we got to see our students in action in their shops. And then we continued to have conversations about this through into the winter. I started having conversations with the faculty, giving them the opportunity to give me some concerns, give me input, which we then discussed again at the academic committee. And that brings us today to start sharing this with the board, with the public, and then as well as to talk about, continue a committee of teachers. I feel like I had one more slide. Maybe it's after this. So in terms of whether or not we should return to a block, in my opinion, our number one reason to go back to a block is because of career tech. So I am very proud to say, I was just at the principals meeting last week. For the number of slots each district that sends is allocated, Waynesboro has the highest fill rate for next year. So I'm very, very proud of that. Our counselors deserve a lot of credit for that. Ms. Mendez Murphy, it is a tremendous amount of work with their process. And we had over 160 students apply. And I believe we get 94 slots. So I think we're going to be over 85 filled, which has been a concern in the past. I do think there are students that don't go to Career Tech right now because Career Tech runs a semester. So they go for one semester and then they come back to WASHS. If we are on the block, they can choose any classes that are offered the block they're at the high school, whether that be AP something, whether that be applied something, whether that be English 10. Right now, they are tracked together because no other classes in the building run a double period. They have a different set of graduation requirements, which I think is okay. Their electives are satisfied by their classes at Career Tech. But I do think some of the students have interests outside of that they'd like to explore, that the way that the schedule works right now, they don't really have that opportunity to do. When students choose to do early to college, especially if they're going to be going face-to-face, many universities, the classes are more than an hour long. So it's hard to get to a college and then get back for, a class that's only 45 minutes. Internships, I think, are something we're really proud of. And when we have a block schedule, they can go to a school, elementary school for an hour and a half. They have a little bit more time to do that. I know when I was at some of you the last couple of years, we love to have the high school students come over, but sometimes they were really only there for about 30 minutes. Whereas if we have a longer block of time, they can be there for a longer duration of time. As we've talked about with the board before, Act 158 with the requirement to pass Keystone exams or a variety of other things, this would give students the opportunity to take Keystones twice in one school year a little bit more easily. We've talked about in the past getting into content more deeply because you have a longer period of time with your teacher versus come in, get started. We only have about 30 minutes to do the lesson before it's time to wrap up and move on to the next class. Learners being able to focus on 3 or 4 classes at one time instead of 7. Now that may mean that they have a little bit more homework to do because they have a little bit longer period, but they only have homework in 3 or 4 classes versus 7, or some of them maybe even more than that. So that's connected to the out of school workload. And so we talk about the opportunity for teachers to do various instructional strategies. So things like doing a debate, things like doing class presentations, things that are more learner centered are hard to do when you only have a 45-minute class period. I am also a member of the community, which everybody knows. So I know a lot of our families outside of school, which is an awesome opportunity. So I hear a lot of concerns from parents. My daughter is going to be coming to the high school next year. So I've been hearing a lot of anxieties from some families about what happens when kids come to the high school. And a lot of the students are worried about not having Braves block. So many students are accustomed to having that period at the end of the day where they can go get extra help from teachers. They can start their homework and check in and make sure that they know what they're doing. We don't have anything like that on the current schedule. Credit recovery, we're still kind of working with some of our students to make sure they're passing classes the first time. We have some courses for some learners that are broken up into two parts. So some of our learners who need a little bit more help with math might take Algebra 1A as a 9th grader and then take Algebra 1B as a sophomore, at which time they would take the Keystones. We would return to a block schedule. My recommendation was that students that fit that category would do 1A and 1B in 9th grade. I think that would help them maintain their content knowledge for that course and then be done with algebra. They wouldn't have to take that anymore. I'm really big on the connections our teachers are able to have with their students. And I think spending more time with them for a longer amount of time will help with that. But then consequently, like a con for that is you really connect with this teacher and you make a really good relationship. And then it gets to be January and that class is over. So your opportunity to see that teacher the way you did is kind of limited. When you do the math, we will have fewer instructional minutes per course. So that's part of the curriculum work that we would need to do to look at what the scope and sequence is and make sure that we're having reasonable expectations for how many lessons or units we're going to complete in a school year. I see a lot of attention span concerns with students. At this point of the year, cell phones and things like that. So when you have that class for 80 minutes and you're not really into it, it's definitely easier to be on your phone than to be paying attention to what you're supposed to be doing. I think the amount of work missed when absent could probably go into either category because again, the classes are longer. There's some things we would need to work out with school calendar logistics. When January rolls around, that's kind of the beginning of second semester would be like the first day of school for us. So would we have another back to school night in January? Would we have another round of parent conferences, things like that? And then I'm not sure if it's going to be a concern or not, but right now we have X number of teachers. Is that going to be enough teachers on an 8-period block? So Dr. Kopko has worked through some of those numbers. We believe we're going to be even, but it's one of those things we're really just going to have to wait and see where we would fall with course requests. So if we would decide to do this, which would obviously be a board decision as it was the last time, this summer, what we would begin doing is developing our master schedule for next year, which would be the same schedule we have now. This is way too much work to do in 3 months. I am very happy we have Mr. Bigler now. That was a concern as we talked about this in the fall. And that would also give us some time to start doing professional development with staff in terms of curricular pieces. In the fall, as we normally do, we would be looking at course selection guide revisions, and that would probably be impacted by whatever we decide to do with scheduling. And then we would need to have a process for doing the back end work in Sapphire so that for the 24-25 school year, which is when we would, if we decide to move forward with this, that's my recommendation for implementation for 24-25. We need to have all those parameters set up correctly. We would do course selection in the winter as we normally do. At that time, make sure all the back end work is done. And usually in February, March, we have preliminary staffing numbers and section numbers for the board. None of that would change. And in the summer of 2023, we would be creating a new schedule based on a block instead of a traditional schedule.
Just, I think you wanted to say this would be implemented in 23, 24.
23, 24, yes.
Yes,
So not the
okay.
upcoming year, but the year after that.
Right,
Yes,
right,
thank
right.
you. All right, I believe that is my last slide. I do have a small committee, but I will say there's been a lot going on this year. So I don't want to fault teachers for not participating because they've had other extra responsibilities with, you know, absences and things like that. So we would certainly have a larger committee. So that's why I didn't include the names of the committee members on this slide. So I think that's my last one. If you have questions, I'm happy to try to answer them.
I guess one of the things, I'm going to play devil's advocate, but I am a proponent of block schedule. I see great benefits for our
Mhm.
career center kids. And I think the high school had more internships, putting kids out in the workplace
Mhm.
than career center.
I think we did as well. Yeah.
So, but kudos to the high school.
Mhm.
Anyhow, one of the things that used to be a complaint, I think, was testing when you're on a block.
Mhm.
You have algebra in the fall,
Mhm.
and you have to take the test in the spring, or whatever it might be. What are some of the issues there that?
Sure.
you've got?
So nicely, when PDE rolled out Keystones versus PSSAs, because we were still giving PSSAs in 2012, and they were only given in the spring to 11th graders. With that implementation, there's 3 Keystone testing windows a year. So we have January, which lines up perfectly with the end of our semester. We do them right away when we get back from Christmas. We have May. And then this year, we are going to give some students the opportunity to come in over the summer because Ms. Goulet's class of 2023 will be the first ones that are impacted by the new graduation requirements. We have a lot of students who are close to being proficient, and that's cleanest. That's kind of been the vernacular I've been using versus when you get into pathway number 3, Miss Richards and I were working on that with our special education population yesterday. There's just a lot of different parameters. So I think in terms of state testing, it works out, but we did just have this conversation yesterday that, you know, you might run into a kid that the luck of the schedule, they have in like 3 or 4 core classes in the fall and then their electives in the spring. So we do try to look at those. That's part of what the counselors do with their summer days that you all graciously reinstated. And, you know, I think we just, like Dr. Kopko and I and Mr. Bigler, we have some ideas on how we can help better communicate with between the staff and the students about tests. Like, is there like a Google sheet where we list who's giving a test when, so that, oh, you know, 3 other 9th grade teachers are all giving a test on Tuesday. Maybe I could do mine on Wednesday instead so that the kids can spread them out. So I think those are some things we can troubleshoot as a faculty.
And I think it's good because I'll tell you, I think there are parents today that were probably students during that
Mhm.
block early
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
That ran into those issues. And I have a feeling some them, by the time their kids get to the high school, they're gonna be asking that question. I couldn't,
Yeah.
I had algebra in the fall.
Yep.
I had to take the PSSAs, I think
Yep.
at that time
Yep.
in
mhm,
the spring. So
Yeah.
another question I had is, did you find any courses that lend themselves better to the traditional? More so, because what happens, and I think I told you,
Mhm.
make sure it's based on what we need
mhm,
instead of letting the tail wag the dog and just going with the block schedule, look at what we need and then build a schedule around it.
Sure.
But, and sometimes that's an issue. There might be a course or certain programs that better suited. Did you find anything like that?
We did. So some categories that I would say they fall into. So like AP exams, or AP classes, I think would fall into your category. So Dr. Kopko and I, we had a virtual meeting with Greencastle School District. They've been on a block schedule for a long time. And I know at the previous time the high school was on the block, a lot of the AP courses did an A and a B. So students who wanted to take the exam stayed for both semesters. Greencastle does not do that. They just schedule where it schedules, and the teachers, I guess, run after school prep sessions if their class happens to fall in the fall semester. Another one would be the music department. When we were on the block before, the band and chorus ran during advisory. That is not the recommendation of our music department. So what we've talked about are, and I hate this word, but I think everybody understands what I mean, skinnies, which would be like a half of a block. Mrs. Harold and the academic committee, we've talked about whether or not that would be really constraining in the scheduling process. So I think we're going to have to look at that and see how things go. So there are some, I would definitely agree, that are going to be hard
Now,
if
as
they're
part
only
of my
one semester.
follow-up question is, have
Mhm.
you looked at a hybrid model where it is partially blocked,
Mhm.
partially? I'm not sure if I would recommend it, but
Mhm.
have you looked at that?
We looked at that last time. There were concerns from the collective bargaining side of things with planning time, which we can elaborate on more tomorrow at academic committee. Sure.
Question, and you mentioned this and when you listed your cons, and that is, and I believe in block scheduling, know
Mhm.
many benefits. The one thing about, like, if you miss compared to the other schedule, if a kid
Mhm.
misses 2 days, that's
Mhm.
in the block scheduling model, that's almost like,
Yeah,
a double that. Or triple
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So any thoughts about,
sure.
how
Sure.
to get these kids caught up?
I met with the club leaders on Monday to talk about a few different things, and we started talking about this a little bit. And when I was in high school, I was heavily involved in band. So I, get to go to district band or something. So I'd miss 2 days of school. So I would miss, my high school had 9-period day. So I would miss 9 classes for 2 days. Some of my friends from neighboring school districts were on a block, and they said, well, I miss every day that I miss, it's like missing 2. So I think it's like 6 in one and a half dozen in the other. Like I had makeup work to do in 9 classes, but it was only maybe 5 problems a night in math versus, but I think, but then I also had physics homework to do, and they didn't have that class that semester. So, I just think it depends.
Well, and honestly, I think, Mr. Smith, that if they're able to incorporate some kind of advisory,
Mhm.
that catch-up time, I
Yeah,
mean, it's not just for, that's an excellent time to do that. Or if this
Mhm.
teacher's certainly willing to stay after school.
that was
Um,
actually something that the club leaders suggested to me yesterday, that we find a way to build in during the school day some catch-up time. So it's always interesting to hear from them, because then like my brain gets turning, and then I, talk to my admin team and Mr. Hoffman, and that's where the really good ideas come from. So I think we have some things we can put in place with that for next school year, which the club leaders lead me to believe will help with our attendance, which is a very big concern of mine.
But
Good.
one other
Yes.
thing about the Career Center, I think one thing to keep in mind is, I think the more we can align
Mhm.
their calendar and ours.
Yes,
if
it's
we go
very
block,
helpful.
Yeah, and I
Mhm.
think a lot of them started to follow us this year,
Mhm.
I think, some of the other districts
Mhm.
with our calendar, but I think that'd be a critical when we go to a block, so then our kids don't lose out.
Yes, and our semesters, I think, worked out perfectly this year.
Yeah.
But I know Dr. Kopko had mentioned last year there was a gap there, that the kids, I think, just were kind of hanging in limbo to come back. So
Yeah.
yeah, and they really enjoy going up there and offer a great program. So I think the more that we can do to encourage that, I think that would help with what Miss Rankinen was talking about with some of the trade schools. And myself, Miss Eddy, and Miss Goulet went to a presentation in Chambersburg last week about getting accepted into the military academies. So we're all very knowledgeable about that process now and are going to add West Point to our list of visits next school year. So have our contact for that and we're ready to go. Yeah.
Good. And one last thing, the professional development, I think that's key because some of the kids staying focused, I'll tell you, just having been at the high school at that time when it was implemented, we were, so we're back. So anyhow, at that time, the teachers, there were some teachers that were able to handle that block well. And it wasn't necessarily a certain kind of class, that it was art class that could handle it better. There were some English teachers that I thought handled that block well.
I'd
and
agree.
kept kids focused.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was the professional development, I think, plus their creativity.
Yep. And then also having a plan for revisiting that as we, this year, I think we hired 8 new teachers at the high school. So making sure that the new people are up to speed with what we're expecting. Yep.
Do teachers want this, or is it like, is it a mix?
I think it's a mix. I would say when we talked about this last time, it was new, therefore I didn't want to do it. So I didn't get much like, this is horrible. The teachers were very clear to me that they did not want to do what was happened last year, where I have these 4 classes today and I don't see them again until the day after tomorrow. When I taught in Lancaster County, we had a schedule like that and I found it very challenging for makeup work. If a student was absent on Monday, I wasn't going to see him again till Wednesday, and trying to keep track of all that was really hard. And then they've had their other piece of input is that whatever schedule we adopt, they'd like it to be the same every day. So Dr. Kopko and I had a thought about, there was a concern in the past about the use of advisory and what happens during that time period. So we had talked about the possibility of doing it 2 days a week. That way we could be a little bit more prescriptive on what was happening and monitoring and things like that. And the general impression I get from the teachers, I haven't like officially surveyed them. This is just anecdotally through my handful of scheduled people, is that they would like it to be the same every day. So we do that. There's periods are going to be smaller and the number of skinnies is going to be impacted. So
I think there was pushback from the teachers when it was implemented, before it was implemented before. And then I am loved it after.
yeah, it was not popular when we went to a traditional schedule. And I don't believe it was extremely popular with the community that voiced those concerns. Yeah. Okay. And I would say if people are watching and they have questions about this, they're happy to email me. My contact is on the website or the newsletter. Thank you.
Thank you. You might have to get Miss Spare out of retirement to help work that schedule out for like next summer. So this is going to be something that we are going to vote on. We have the option if somebody, it's not on the agenda to vote on, but it's on the agenda. So if somebody wants to make a motion and we can vote on this now, or if you would prefer everybody to wait until the next meeting, that's okay too. What is the academic committee has spent some time on this. The academic committee is actually, unless I'm not remembering correctly, Mrs. Zimmerman or Dr. Royer, we are recommending that we go to the block. But if everybody would like to wait, because it's not on there or whatever other reasons you want to look into it more, that's fine. Anybody have a suggestion for that?
I guess I would like to hear Dr. Klein's
Opinion on
your
the block or on voting now? On the block.
On the block.
Okay.
I mean, I think I know what it is. but-
Yeah, I mean, I certainly would support it, you know, like I said earlier, my first thing to Dr. McCallum was make sure we don't, we don't start with the schedule in mind, start with what our needs are in mind, and build the schedule of what the needs are. And I think she explained some of that she was looking at the pros and cons and looking at the amount of pros that were there, and then see if that looks like block schedule fit those needs that we have. One thing I do really believe I mean, I saw it at the high school, how much of a difference our Voc Tech kids felt a part of our student body. I felt they were mixed in with the kids during the block. And one of the things when I came back here and saw the traditional schedule, I thought these kids are isolated again. They're not a part of the school like they used to be. I mean, they're part, but it's not the same. They can't be taking the other things the other kids are taking. It's just not fair to those kids. Because some of them are pretty bright and have done real well. Some of them have done extremely well. So we should give them the same opportunities in it as any other student. And that's why I like the block. It's done a lot in that way for those kids. So,
I think I have two questions if we're gonna vote on this tonight. Mostly related to student things.
Okay.
So first question is, and I saw Dr. McCown looking at Riley, so don't feel like you have to be on the spot, but my question
If you want.
mentioned club leaders, like, is there what the student feedback was? Like you mentioned, the Brave block was something that they were wanting, but I didn't know. We talked about student concerns in the sense that this is how it might impact students, but I don't know what students think, other than Riley nodding her head occasionally.
I will own that we have not presented this to the entire student body.
Okay.
So they have not had the opportunity for input.
Mhm.
So I was texting Dr. Cernerheim when I sat down. A vote tonight or a vote in a month will have no impact on what we do. It won't hinder us in any way. So I will send a newsletter to our families on Friday. I would be very comfortable if I had the opportunity to include my presentation in that newsletter, and then that would give families the opportunity to look things over as well as the students, give us any feedback we hadn't considered. And then that would still give the board time to vote in May. And that's not going to mess up anything we need to do. So I'd be comfortable with that. But if you want to vote tonight, you're the board.
how about parent feedback? Have you,
We have not done that. No,
just curious?
we have not done that.
I think
Other
that,
than we have a lot of faculty members who are parents.
Sure.
So I've gotten
It's
feedback
not
from
the
them, but
same.
not the same. No.
so I think that answers first question is what the student feedback is.
Mhm.
And then second question, I'm sure this was discussed in academic, and I see our special education friends in the back of the room. How would block scheduling impact those special ed students?
Mhm.
For or against? And so if this is something that was discussed in academic committee, I'm open to hearing that, but I think that was my two student questions. And then I have a comment then after that.
We have not talked a lot about, I mean, sometimes honestly, 2 of our 4 members taught in the block. And sometimes I don't know, I forget aspects, like I could answer some of that, though we could certainly have,
Mhm.
especially Mrs. Richards who lived it. And I don't know if Mrs. McDonald was here at that point. Were you here for the block? Okay. But anyway, and
Yeah.
as Mrs. Richards was here as a teacher.
Mhm.
So, she would have some input on that. So fire away if you'd like to.
You have to come up here. I was an assistant principal the last 2 years we were on the block. I would say there's no difference other than we run a support period, which is a forced elective for our special ed students so that
Okay.
they have the opportunity for check-in with their case manager. That used to occur during advisory, and that's what we've discussed doing if the board would vote to go back to a block. I see that as a benefit to the students because they get that elective back.
Mhm.
So some of our incoming 9th graders are having to make a difficult choice. Some of our special ed students have been involved in more languages at the middle school, or they want to be at the high school, and then they want to continue in band or chorus, and that doesn't leave room for the support period. So then they have to make a choice that's hard for them, and I don't want them to have to miss out on either one of those opportunities. Go ahead.
One of the first things I see just right off the top of my head would be, it would help us with our model for inclusion and for co-teaching, because you're going to have a longer period. So you're going to be able to have a lesson, and then the special ed teacher is going to be able to pull groups. So I see it very, very beneficial for learning support. So your typical kids that just need help with reading, math, science and social studies, it is hard to cover all the different subjects. So I think it would make it a little bit easier with the staff we have now, especially our TAs, to help cover so that there's more support for the kids.
Okay.
I would be pro block.
So I taught block in one of our intensive classrooms at the high school. And I will say that with those intensive classrooms, whether you're talking autistic support or our more supplemental learning support where it's more self-contained, it's really good having the block because they do a lot of community-based instruction. They do a lot of project-based things, independent living where you're doing cooking, things like that. Those larger periods of time really lend well to those classes. And as far as like attention and focus and things like that, I think as long as you're constantly kind of changing up what you're doing, we did have a lot of PD on things that you could do with your content, teaching reading within the content courses. so that you're just kind of changing up what you're doing a little bit to keep their focus and attention. So I don't, having taught those lower level kids, see it as a bad thing at all. I loved block and was sad when we went away from it for those reasons. So
Thank you both for, yeah, there you go.
See, I'll just keep rolling.
That's fine.
But it would also be beneficial for those kids that we want to start including that may not be in a regular ed class, because we can always include them for different activities. So it's going to give you more time, where right now the periods are so fast, everything's going so fast. Sometimes it's hard. If they're only there for 20 minutes, it's hard because there's so much time lost.
Great.
I think that's it for now.
That's fine. I appreciate you both willing to come up on the spot there and speak to it. So I think my last comment then is kind of what was already mentioned, is that if we as a board move for this, then I highly encourage us as the board and then the admin teams to support professional development, because I've seen this outside of school settings where things change and support wasn't given, and then we lose people. And so I think if we switch schedules, we definitely need to support our teachers in that maneuver.
Well,
One other quick thing is, one thing I would suggest, Dr. McCallum, is to, throughout the process, if the board does go ahead and move forward with this, is doing some updates, of where you're at in the process. I think that'll help, because it is a big initiative, and I agree with the quote that you have. The scheduling is vital to what happens during that day.
well, it sounds like, with questions, I'm guessing maybe people have more questions, so perhaps it would be better to wait. Unless somebody really wants to vote on it now. It's up to you guys.
I'm fine to wait. I just like to make two quick comments.
Okay.
And yes, I'm pro block and I've taught under both. But one thing that keeps coming up is, oh, it's less minutes in the block. It's less, less teaching time. And I can tell you, with the transition in classes, I never saw that it was less teaching time. Your start up and your finish with each period. Anyway, I never saw that. But secondly, I want to say that I had a VOTEC student. I taught German. Okay, and I had a VOTEC student who was really into VWs. And this VOTEC student had the opportunity to get a Congress Bundestag scholarship, full scholarship funded by our Congress and Germany's Congress for a full year in Germany. And this was a VOTEC student
Who wouldn't have been able to take German?
who would not have been able
Right.
to if it had not been the block.
Yeah.
And then, what this student, the benefits he reaped by spending a year in Germany, living with a family, working with VWs there, et cetera. I mean, it's priceless.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah. Okay, so are we good to wait then? We'll put it on for the 10th. Okay. Okay, thank you, everybody, and great information from the presentations here today. Okay, moving on now to board reports. Anybody have anything to report?
Policy does.
Okay,
Okay, so the second reading of policies 626, 610, 611, and 800 were pretty much things that were required by law. And the first policy readings are trauma informed approach, weapons, terroristic threats, threat assessments, hazing, bullying, cyberbullying, date violence, and school security personnel. And Dr. Sternheim did a really great job with the trauma policies, and it was very time consuming. And it took forever, but we got through it. And I think the only other thing that we're working on is passed on to the administration, and that would be address some changes, some potential changes in dress code based on the fact that it hasn't been updated in quite a while and things change. And oh yeah, student input rate. So other than that, I think we are completely caught up. Yes, Aaron, are we completely caught up? And we will not meet in May. Our next meeting will be June. Did I miss anything, Rach?
Wow. Good for you. Guys.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Other committee reports?
Facilities met last week.
We did.
We had the
We spent,
Crabtree.
we spent a lot of money, didn't we?
We are,
We
yes,
spent a lot
we are
of the
spending-
government's money, not the
Yes.
local taxpayers' money.
So we had was a presentation by Crabtree.
Mhm.
And they did some walkthroughs of the buildings, and hopefully doing some updates on some of our elementary schools.
Yeah, we made some decisions that will be coming before the board to vote on some significant facility purchases, or more like fixing up some stuff that needs to be done, like roofs and that kind of thing. So that'll be coming up. Academic is meeting tomorrow at 11. Anyone interested in attending that? And budget personnel hasn't met.
No,
No.
discipline hasn't met.
No.
Budget.
Well, we had the vote on the preliminary budget. Are we looking to vote on the budget next meeting?
No, it has to be the last meeting.
The last
in
meeting,
May.
okay.
Yeah, to meet the 30-day.
Okay, so there's plenty of time still to look at that and figure out what we're gonna do with that. Nothing else
I think our next meeting is the 9th of May, if I have that right, for budget.
for budget?
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
9th of May. And facilities is, I think, is 17th, so. Okay, okay, finally, Riley, your turn. Again, though you've had a lot to say today. Okay. It's up to you. Want to come up? Want to stretch a little bit? That's
Okay, I'm
fine.
gonna stretch then. because-
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm gonna first build on a little bit of what Ms. Frankeman talked about the Junior Jumpstart Program. So it's taking place on May 10th at 6:30 p.m. and it's for juniors specifically, and it's going to talk about matching our personality with a college and also with how to do college research and the importance of college visits. So being able to go meet with that college, go to that with students on campus or even without students on campus, and be able to see if you fit in, go through like what a normal day would be, etc. So also it's going to talk about public versus private financial aid. So in former years, public schools will have a certain amount of money that they can give you as financial aid, but private, it is known to give more because they have more different areas to give. Also, I want to talk about how we are in the process of selecting our future leaders for our clubs. So we are starting that to look for the campaigns, as well as we will have our speeches filmed on Tribe Time. Tomorrow, FBLA travels to Harrisburg for the Senators game. So we will be at the high school at 6:45, bright and early, for the business of baseball, where we will get a tour and we will get to learn more about what it takes to run a baseball team. So we're meeting with the general manager, the skipper, and then we will watch the baseball game just a little bit, and then we'll come back to the high school. Coach Hoffman and Coach Sprinkle won the Coach of the Year, which is well deserved. They both had successful seasons, and they're great people and teachers for us as students. So Wind Talkers is our literary magazine for WASHs. So we are in the process, that is being in the process of being made right now. So I am in creative writing workshop 2. So right now we went through all the writings and got to look at that, and there's really talented people in our school. And then also we got to look at the art, which is not our specialty, that is the art department, but there's very talented artists in our mix. Next week is Teacher Appreciation Week. So Student Council is gathering together to make sure that we can write thank you notes. So we're going to write thank you notes to our teachers and make sure that they feel appreciated. Also, just talk a little bit about sports. I know varsity baseball won a hard fought game against Northern, and they're a very young team. So they're doing really well and doing higher than they predicted, which is exciting for us as a community.
I know that a note of appreciation from a student is huge.
Yeah.
And in the old days, I don't know if you guys are just doing high school, but if you had an elementary or a middle school person that you really thought was significant, send them to them too.
Yeah,
So-
I went to the elementary career day for a Maori, so I returned to my elementary school, and there wasn't much teachers that was still there, but the
Mhm.
ones I did see, oh my gosh, it was so good seeing them.
Yeah, I mean, and teachers will remember that. Like they'll save it. Like you write them a little note. We used to have a teacher that used to do that, send them all over the place. And like I could still tell you, a couple that I got, even though I was teaching seventh grade at the time. So that's a great idea. So good for you guys.
Right.
Okay, thank you very much.
you.
Okay, on to business items. Personnel is first, Dr. Sternerheim.
Thank you, Mrs. Harold. I'd like to direct your attention to personnel items in board docs. We have appointment of support staff, appointment of GED staff, resignation of professional staff, a reassignment, I should say, of professional staff, appointments of Act 91 monitors, staffing changes in addition to reference to summer school, appointments for WASD summer cleaners, as well as appointments for game personnel. Continuing then, we have resignation of support staff, termination of support staff, appointment of support staff, appointment of grade level coordinators, and appointment of summer maintenance student workers, as well as summer cleaners, appointments of summer school nurse, and an appointment of game personnel. In addition, we are asking for the approval of Claire Purcell as part of our professional staff. She's currently serving as a long-term sub. She will be replacing Katie Scott, who resigned. We also want to welcome, and she is in the audience, Jennifer Preisler as our new, associate principal at Fairview Elementary. We want to welcome her, and we're hopeful that she can start sooner rather than later, as Mrs. McGuire would probably agree wholeheartedly.
I
We
talked to Dr. Betts last night about 9 o'clock, so.
Okay, so Todd's
Hopefully.
working it for you, so.
I know where he lives. I'll go ahead.
So welcome, Jennifer. And we also are going to be welcoming a new school psychologist. So all that personnel information is for your approval. So recommendation is to approve as listed.
Motion,
So move.
Second.
questions? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. On to Bus Boss, Mr. Holtzman.
Yes, ma'am. Bus Boss is the software we use with Orbit software. We use a couple of their modules. We've used this for a couple of years. This is the annual agreement. We typically do a one-year agreement with this company just to kind of keep our options open for future. But this would continue that process. We use the import and export tools to go ahead and configure that with Sapphire. So that's why those additional modules are in place.
Do we have a motion? Anybody to motion to approve? Well,
Move to
that's-
approve for discussion.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
That's very interesting, Ms. Marvin, because I want to discuss too. So go ahead.
Alrighty, so pursuant to the comment earlier, what other options are out there?
There certainly are other companies out there with software. Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
When was the last time we looked at a company?
It was probably before me. So I think it was the year before me. So maybe 2014, 15, somewhere in that ballpark, maybe 15, 16, right in that ballpark.
I can tell you, at least in, out of 4 districts I've been in, I think 3 of them use Bus Boss, I believe. They all had it before I got there. But I think some of the things that were talked about that were some of the issues. There are a number of contributing factors to that. Even the some of the redistricting still be remnants of some of those crossovers and all that. I believe, if I'm correct, there would be.
Yeah, I mean, sure. We've kind of went through transportation a couple of times. It's been a couple of years since we did actual transportation kind of presentation on, what our costs are, mileage, things of that nature. Typically, when we've done that, we typically our cost per mile, our cost per student are below the state average typically, which is not unusual. We're a pretty frugal school district, so we try to figure it out. We have a couple legacy neighborhoods that are in multiple schools. So you're going to see vehicles going into the same neighborhoods, going to different schools. We have the same situation with non-public. So we service 10 to 12 non-public schools. So you're going to see buses and vans going into the same neighborhood, picking up students, then going into Hagerstown or up into Chambersburg to satisfy those needs. We also have students who with special ed classrooms. So we have a lot of special ed classrooms up at Maui. So you're going to see vehicles in our district going through the same neighborhoods, picking students up and then taking them up to one school versus in a neighborhood kind of school environment. We did do a bus routing review with Orbit whenever we did the attendance zones. That was something we did after the fact, after the district had made a decision on the attendance zones themselves. Based on that process, I think we dropped one bus and we saved about 20,000 miles, give or take, based on that review. Now, that was just the elementary. We didn't have them do a secondary route at that time. But one of the things too is they certainly can even make the routes more efficient than what we have today, certainly. But part of it is our transportation coordinator will go in and take a look at those routes, and we'll sit down and look at those recommendations, and she'll come to me quickly and say, we're not going to have a bus make a left-hand turn on this road. It's just not going to work. Or we're not going to have a bus go through this neighborhood because it doesn't work. So there certainly are some reasons why the vehicles go in different directions and different purposes. But again, we can always make things more efficient. There's a downside to that too as well. But it's always a balancing act. Certainly some of the buses will be at capacity. Some will be less so. Some will be more so for elementary because you can fit more students in a bus. Secondary, very difficult to get more than 2 students in a bus seat. I mean, they're rated for 3, but that's a real challenge with once you start looking at band instruments and gym bags and things of that nature. So that was a quick summary. Sorry.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, a question, isn't
Sure.
this the company we used for the redistricting? No.
Yes.
No, it was. We did. We
is.
used them for.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that answers my question.
And that's
Well,
the issue, correct? Mrs. Zimmerman?
That's actually, I'm sorry, that's the issue. They made big time mistakes.
I think,
So I'm questioning.
yeah,
I guess I would always say that they make the decisions based on mileage and capacity of buildings, not necessarily on the culture of a community. And so I think that's part of that process that the school board and the community comes together and looks at the recommendations from those companies and says, ideally, if it's all based on mileage and based on, the capacity of a school, here's where you would put it. But the community, the board comes together and looks at that and says, this may, you may need to modify this or adjust this to really suit the community. And again, you're looking at a group that's taking it from one perspective, and then we're going to look at it from a different perspective.
I think one of the challenges with that group when we did the redistricting, there are companies out there that help you with redistricting, and we went to the WASD company to help do it with Orbit, and their maps were not of top quality. They were very generic maps, and which made it very difficult to do the work of that. But it was probably much more of a cost savings than bringing some of the groups in. It probably would have been easier to have some of those consultants come in to do that work, and we would have understood it. They would have worked through the community. There would have been a number of things going on. But to confuse that part with the actual software that they use, they are 2 different things.
It
just the
is 2
same
different
company.
things.
To my knowledge, they're 2 different things.
It is,
They
it's
use
2
that software to help set up what we
Right.
have.
What we use this software for here that we're asking for is simply put, it's the tool that we use to manage the routes. We take the student data from Sapphire, we use that, and then we go back in the other direction as well with that data. So it's basically, it's kind of a tool that allows us to map out where those buses are going to go, the routes, what students are on those buses and things of that nature. But that's the primary use of the tool. Now they do other things. So for example, you could go through and use them to actually generate all the routes on a regular basis. We're not asking them to do that. That's an additional cost that we don't feel we want to do at this time.
well, I actually, I really was very disappointed with the redistricting, but I also have issues with some things now. Honestly, I thought we had, and again, I'm going to blame it on COVID, but I thought we had said that we were going to look at it because I understand what the issue is. At this point, it's too late to really go with another company to develop all the routes and all the information that we need. So with this motion, what I would like to see, somebody, if you're willing, or maybe Mr. Marvin willing to amend it, this contract is for 1 year. And again, I think we're kind of stuck. But I really hope we seriously look at some other companies for the future, which would mean, we approve this for 1 year, but start the hunt as soon as we can for other companies that would be interested in giving us a bid on what they could do, and get the transportation people involved, which I hope we do. I'm not saying we don't do that. To get, input there as well. So,
Can I have a clarification question
sure.
then for Mr. Holtzman?
Sure.
So for this particular contract, when do we need to act on it? Like, is this we have to do it to Mrs. Harrell's point, do we have to do this now? In order for this to, there's not enough time to look for something new, correct?
I mean, obviously you can always look for something new. It would be a challenge timing wise. I mean, we're April. I mean, to get something implemented and have it running by July, it would be a bit of a challenge to do that in a short period of time. Let's take a look at all the companies and what they offer. It was interesting. I think with some of the old software, if I remember, and I worked with a couple other transportation directors over the years, and there was another company that had a software product that they all loved. And they all loved it because when you hit the button, it came out with a state report. And that was almost like the most challenging item for a lot of our transportation directors was the state report. And they loved this old software because it gave them the state report by default. Now, it might not have been great software in other ways, but that's what the part they loved. And I don't blame them because the state report is a challenge to complete. But to answer your question, yeah, I mean, we have May, June going into July then to get that worked over and switched over. And again, there are other companies out there, probably pricing and functionality and many of those other factors. Realistically, they all do about the same thing. I mean, we could do the same thing with financial software, and they're all going to do roughly the same thing at the end of the day. They put students on buses and they try to get the most efficient route out there. Yeah.
Well, part of it too is though, I mean, it's the same company, even though there's two
Yeah.
different aspects. I don't like
Sure.
rewarding them when they
Yeah.
really did not do a very good job on the other. So, so are you accepting that it's too late to switch now, you think, Mr. Marvin, or?
I don't want to put that lift on that team.
Yeah, I think
That
that
feels
would
like
be
a
hard.
very heavy lift in
Yeah.
3 months.
Yeah.
So I think we can move forward with the motion as is, because it's just to approve this yearly contract
Correct.
with the back end stipulation then that whether it's the facilities committee or whatever, start to look for potential alternatives for the following year.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay. Okay. So the official vote is simply going to be on accepting this 1-year contract.
That's my understanding.
Everybody good with that? Any other discussion, questions? Okay, that being the case, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Holtzman, you'll get on that, I hope, for the future. We'll
I
start
will. I
looking. at
put a
these.
note down. We'll start working and taking a
Okay.
look at what our options are and come back
Okay.
and, we can give that as an ad hoc committee or something along those lines to
Okay.
show the board. Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
I
on.
appreciate the time. That was my.
Yeah.
Having time.
Well,
This is a transition.
Yeah. The biggest issue is it's always getting that data from our student software into the bus data and back and forth. And that's always one of the biggest challenges we have.
Yeah.
To make sure that's working right. Once it works great, but it's making sure that works correctly.
okay.
Thank
All
you.
right, on to the next item, which is the first reading of several policies. And who's taking
That
that?
would be me.
Okay,
Yeah, so as you can see, we have several policies there. As Mrs. Sullivan had mentioned, from trauma, weapons, terroristic threats into school security that policies that we've made some small tweaks and some that had major additions or subtractions. But a lot of work was put in by the committee. They did a nice job, as they have been. They're staying on task. Anyhow, administration is asking for approval, and the policy committee has moved these on, asking for.
okay, so this is the first reading, so we won't
Right.
act on that. Anybody have any comments on this, however, any of these policies? Questions or anything?
Just a clarification question. How many of these are required policies? I remember Mrs. Sullivan mentioned earlier that some are required by law. So are
All of
all,
them? I
all of
believe.
them?
I believe all of them.
Okay.
Yeah. The whole trauma issue has become huge
Okay.
since, well, I would guess probably since COVID more than anything.
Yeah. And actually, you know, with some of our inspired classes, that was even before.
That's true.
We put them specifically
Yeah.
for trauma.
Yeah.
We were also directed to establish threat assessment teams, and so most of the policies will refer to a
Mhm.
threat assessment team, which we have established in the district.
Okay.
We've always had them, but we all had more formalized training this past year.
Gotcha.
You're saying you are doing that, or that's
We-
coming
we
up?
have trained.
Okay.
Let me clarify. We've trained all our admin, our principals, and our school counselors, and a number of related arts teachers as well. The training is actually available now free of charge. It's on a already learned course, and it's available to anyone who would like to take it. Most of us participated in the LIU training, and Marty slated for it on June 6th. And so Jennifer, you might want to keep June 6th open, okay? So, so it's going to have to continue to roll with those trainings as mandated by Pennsylvania state law.
Okay.
Unless you already have it. We're good.
Okay. Anything else for the first group? Okay, now on to the second reading of the policies. This one we are going to act on. Just, do we have a motion for this?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, did you want to say anything else about these, Dr. Klein?
No, these are actually, these came more from the business office for compliance.
Discussion?
Yep.
Okay, I would like to pull out 610 from and vote on that separately, please.
Okay,
610
just have it as a separate vote.
as a separate
Hold on,
vote.
hold on, wait, let me catch
Yeah.
up.
I have some problems with 610. And I realize this comes down from the state, but I'm not going to vote for it.
Okay.
And you want to know why?
Well, why don't let's vote on the other three,
Yeah, we can vote the other
unless somebody
three.
has any issues on the other three, and then we can spend some time with 610.
Okay,
Okay, so first we need a motion to
You got
have it
one?
as a separate vote.
Okay,
Okay?
Yeah.
So can we,
I can
somebody do,
amend my motion, and I'm going to it's just going to be for the three.
okay, what numbers are they? Can you look at them?
Oh, look at them, yeah. Hold on. 626, 611, 800. Why don't you do it, Rachel?
Okay.
Read it for you.
Okay,
I wasn't
so-
sure if you could see
So
it.
Ms. Solomon's making the motion for those three. Want to second that? Ms. Fortney?
Yes. I'll second.
Okay, okay, so any questions or comments on those? Okay, if not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now let's have a motion on 610. Someone, well, you're not gonna make a motion because, or I should make a motion, no.
yes.
Do we have anybody to make a motion to
I can-
pass 610 or
I
not
can
pass
make-
it?
I can make a motion.
Yep.
To pass it.
Okay.
because It's required by law.
I'll
Okay.
second.
Second, okay, now discussion,
Hold on.
yes.
Marvin.
You've got me, even though I got this up and that's why it
Yeah.
didn't come on.
Okay, Ms. Zimmerman.
Actually, I realize by law, we need to pass this. However, I think state needs to also redo some things. The competitive bids. When seeking competitive bids, the board shall advertise once a week for 3 weeks in not less than 2 newspapers of general circulation. So obviously, we're supposed to pass it. I mean, the state needs to get on board with what's happening.
Mhm.
So
As far as
that's-
newspapers, you
as
mean?
far as newspapers go,
Mhm.
I mean, I can't vote yes on that.
Can you consider an online newspaper a
We are
newspaper?
doing our.
We are.
Advertising online.
We
but
are.
Mrs. Zimmerman's point, that was something our solicitor was very supportive of.
Yeah.
Even though the state has not come out with it, he said, let them challenge.
Except this says newspapers. So anyway, that's why I think our state 2 years ago, when I came on board, I had to go answer all these questions to be a new board member. And that was another thing. We had to advertise in newspapers, and I wrote a comment about,
Mhm.
how silly this is in this day and age that we are required to do such. So nobody listened to my comment.
Imagine. At
No,
the state
but
level.
anyway,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just the fact that this is outdated. State needs to do something about it, but that's just my own feeling. I'm sorry.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, so we have the motion, the second. All those in favor of passing this? This will have to be a roll call. Oh, okay. Okay, so that's fine. So we'll do roll call. Go ahead, Ms. Kuzer.
Mrs. Sullivan,
Yes.
Mr. Marvin,
Yes.
Mrs. Zimmerman,
No.
Mrs. Courtney,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Dr. Royer,
Looked like yes.
Did she? Okay.
yes, Mrs. Striker.
Yes,
She
okay,
said
she
yes.
said yes. Okay.
And Mrs. Harold.
Yes. Okay, thank you. All right, next item, purchase of some vans. Mr. Holtzman.
Yes, ma'am. We've had a continual need for student transportation vans. That's what these are primary purpose for. They're purpose built for school vans. We've run into a challenge where they're not really making these as much from the factory anymore. So these are oftentimes companies such as the one here that had the lowest responsible bid, basically buys the frames and then makes them into school vans. We're not allowed to have a school van more than 10 people in the vehicle. So it's technically 9 passengers and a driver, or 10 people altogether. The unfortunate part is the prices on these just continue to go up, just like every other vehicle out there. We have a continual need with students who have special needs to be transported to a lot of different facilities. And it's becoming really a challenge with our current vehicle fleet. The vehicles themselves, if approved, would come out of our capital expenditures in the next fiscal year, because we probably will not see these for a couple months. We're hoping to get them in by the start of next school year, but that's not necessarily a guarantee at this point, just because of the vehicle market that's out there. But that's just kind of the summary level.
Motion,
Move to approve.
Second.
questions, comments?
I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
Just be very diligent with Roar
Mhm.
and watch everything they do.
Okay.
From experience,
We'll
the
do.
van that we, got it.
Oh,
You
okay.
gotta be, you gotta
Okay.
watch everything they do.
We did it.
They're the only one.
They
I mean,
are.
there isn't
Yeah.
anybody else,
Yeah,
but be
Yeah.
careful.
Yeah, I use the term lowest responsible bid very loosely in terms of, to your comment. Because realistically, there's not too many bidders out there on these projects
There
right
is,
now.
there really is.
There really is not. Now, we did buy a van from them last year. We've had the van for about a year now. No major issues luckily. So maybe that's a good
Well,
sign
ours
that,
came with it.
oh, okay. So we've not had any issues with the one we bought last year
Brand
from
new.
them. So,
Yeah.
which is good news.
Hmm.
So, and again, these get inspected twice a year, which is nice for us. School transportation vehicles have to be inspected twice a year. If it's a bus, it's actually 3 times a year. State police do it as well.
They're also a ways away. Where are they? Dunking.
Yeah.
So if you have anything, it's a long track.
It is. It is. Again, we've had good luck. So we've had, I think we took delivery last June, I believe, maybe June. Something along those lines.
We don't have dealers around here that deal in this
No.
size.
We do
Yeah.
really make a strong effort. We advertise to all the local, and again, we do follow the requirements of bidding in the newspaper, however, which we're required to do. But we also do make sure that, especially with our local dealers, who have always been very good to us in many ways, we always make sure that they receive communication about these bids. We, make sure we mail them directly, contact them and call them to make sure. Some of them just have not chosen to bid, I think, simply because this is not their market. This isn't their niche. Most of the typical commercial vehicles that schools are going to buy or municipalities are going to buy, there's only a couple dealers in all of Pennsylvania that seem to have really the market on these vehicles. And they usually have the best prices, and then based on volume, that's who we work with. Yeah, we always like to include the local ones as an opportunity because it's a courtesy. We do appreciate their help and support.
Oh, yeah. Did, Are these even available? I missed that. 'cause I
They'll
was-
be building them. So they'll
Really?
actually, they'll be constructing them actually. They'll take the frames like the Ford chassis and then they'll put the box on it and put the seats in and do all.
At this place.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's why Ms. Drake's name. Careful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ah,
Watch it.
that's really interesting.
And what, I mean, when it comes, check it out.
Yeah.
Completely.
We'll do.
Shouldn't brand new van, break down stuff.
Oh my, that's not a good
Yeah.
experience. Yeah. I'm glad we had a better one last year, but I'm sorry to hear
Will
that.
it have a lift or?
No, this will just be a typical student transportation, no wheelchair left on
Okay,
this one.
'cause that
So.
was the issue.
Oh, okay. That was the issue.
Okay, anything else? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, transportation contractor fuel adjustments. Mr. Holtzman.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So our contractors had reached out to us. Obviously, they've experienced a slight increase in fuel like everyone else has. I'm sure we're all aware of that issue. We do not really have a fuel clause escalator in our contract, and for good reason, because typically the formula itself, there's a subsidy formula, an index, transportation index that we use, and the state uses that and picks up the normal inflation, and then it puts it into the next year's number. So there is going to be an increase next year for our contractors. They're going to get a 7% increase. We budgeted that for next year, and that's what they'll get. But obviously, they're kind of asking for some short-term relief. So this is nothing that would go into a separate contract in the sense that it's not going to become cumulative on top of anything else, but they were asking for some help. So what we did is kind of took a look at fuel costs. The fuel cost jumped up about $10,000 in 1 month. So it went from about $20,000 to $30,000 in 1 month for the contractor. And what we were recommending is saying, well, certainly they've been very helpful to us. They've been taking care of our routes. But they will get some of this money back, so to speak, in the index the next year. So the theory was maybe we would go ahead and take care of half of that cost for the one contractor, and then obviously spread that money out, making it $10,000 for all the contractors. We used the ratio of what we're paying those contractors. We tried to come up with a relatively simplistic formula with it. And again, at the end of the day, we're looking at probably about $20,000 over 2 months. This would be April and May effectively. And then we can use ESSER funds for this. This is an approved item for this as well. And again, we're looking at this more of a one-time shot just because of the very unique pricing with fuel. Some districts would have a contract that would have an escalator that would say for every 5 cents it goes up, they put an extra penny into the mile and they go through a whole factor. That could get a little complicated for something in terms of doing a very short-term possibility such as this.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Questions?
Clarification, how much would be ESSER funds or all of it be ESSER funds?
All of it ESSER
All of
funds,
it
yeah.
as is.
Yeah, we're doing it very similar to like the extra $2 that we're paying, similar to staff and similar to the bus drivers themselves as well. So kind of a little way to help them out, but all of it would be ESSER.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Anything else? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I probably should have said, we kind of did a similar thing with field trips, if you remember, maybe even a month ago. We kind of accelerated that. I should have probably mentioned that before you did the vote, but anyway, yeah, we did a very similar thing for field trips and athletics.
Okay,
Sorry
thank
about
you.
that.
Okay, the next item is a look at the superintendent, assistant superintendent, business administrator contracts. And I will give a brief. If I miss something, Dr. Klein, you can jump in here since your contract is in here. When we passed a salary increase, was it the last meeting?
Yes.
The last meeting, that affected Act 93, of which these three are not part of that, but they were included in the vote to increase it. So therefore, we have to have a separate vote for their contracts. Just to clarify, because they're individual contracts, that they are getting that as well. Did I say that correctly? Okay. So that's what that's why we're looking at these again. It's not like a renewal or anything like that. It's just reflecting the increase we already voted on last week or last time. Okay. We have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, business, Mr. Holtzman.
Yes, ma'am. You want me to piecemeal or five?
Jump them
We'll
Lump 'em
jump
as
on
well
down
as
through
you
all
can.
exciting ones. So we have purchase orders, we have general fund, cafeteria fund is normal. We have requisitions as well. We do have just a budget income expense report here to give you. And again, that one's always changing based on how the revenue streams are coming in and expenditures throughout the year. Sometimes those reports look, really exciting whenever you have a lot of expenditures early in the year and then things slow down and vice versa with revenues. We'll be picking up a lot more federal revenues too, as we've been filing our federal reports for ESSER funds to start getting some money back. Real estate change, there was one assessment change that came in from the tax assessment appeal office, and that's because of I believe that was Blue Ridge Summits for their ambulance property. So that will be now non-exempt, so to speak. So you're not going to get taxes for that anymore, but you get ambulance services. So that's a good thing. Then we also have, I'm sorry.
That's another fun.
Luckily, that's not our issue. Thank goodness.
Mine either.
So Washington Township has a re-exoneration there. I think that was for a trailer that has been now demolished. And then there was a repository sale. I think if I remember correctly, the order is upset sale first. If it doesn't sell there, it goes to judicial sale. If it doesn't sell there, it goes to repository sale. If you need more information than that on how that works and why it works that way, I'd have to figure that out again. But anyway, that one's basically they're putting it up for sale and no one's buying it. So they do have an offer of $300 for the property. So sometimes these are either a trailer or it's a little tiny, it's a little tiny peg of a piece of property that no one else can access and nobody knows what to do with it. I think that's what that one is.
Do we have motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Questions? Anything in any of those purchase orders? Budget? Anything? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Thank you.
Okay, Clayton Cabinet comments. Anyone?
Have a few, if it's
Okay.
okay.
fire away.
We're very delighted to announce that our band was able to successfully go to Florida. So I'm sure it was a great experience. And Mrs. Kopko, Dr. Kopko did also accompany the group. Dr. Klein had commented that we are doing the PSSAs, and this is the first year that grades 3 through 8 are all online. And so far, because of the outstanding teacher and admin support and Nick's tech team, it's gone off fairly well. Want to recognize, or we did have the celebration for some of you's 50th anniversary on Saturday, and it was really nice, well attended. It was great to see a number of people who attended. Some of you as either as students or had taught there for a number of years. I think that's it.
Okay, anybody else?
Just a reminder for everybody out there that, unfortunately, the free lunch programs will be ending this year, just again as another reminder. So please, we'll be going back after everyone to fill out the forms for next year for the free and reduced here in the fall, just as a reminder. Summer lunch program, we'll have some more information coming up for you, probably at a very soon future meeting about our proposals for summer lunch.
Okay. Good, Dr. Klein? Okay. Board member comments. Anybody?
I gotta say that I enjoyed whoever did the Facebook on the bus trip. They did such a good job with it. To Florida, the band trip.
Okay. I was like, okay.
Oh my gosh.
What was it? A little?
It was
like
just
us,
fun. It was like joyful and fun, and it felt like you were there. And he showed funny stuff that happened, and it was just really well done.
All I know is Phil Thorpe was exhausted. I mean, he's way too old to do those trips to Florida. That's for youngsters, not for, well, however old Phil is, but anyway, but it
funny.
sounded like it was a good trip.
So maybe we'll look at sharing that in the Friday folder for all to enjoy.
Oh,
So
yeah,
that's an
good.
option.
Yeah, the video.
That's
I should have taken a video of Phil. That would have been fun for all to enjoy as well, but anyway. Okay, anything else? I was at the Summit View thing, again, very nice little event, just recognizing their 50 years. There's 7 of the original teachers who are still with us. 5 of whom were able to make the event, which was very nice, from 1972. Wow. So anyway, okay, then we are going to adjourn. We're going to meet for personnel afterwards. We will not be coming back. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. See you in 2 weeks.
Right.